Hi, thank you for joining me and welcome back if you've visited the channel before. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is really close to my heart. It's this Genesis Selling England by the Pound, Analogue Productions Atlantic 75 series, 45 RPM, mastered from the original Analogue tapes. I think crafted by Chris Bellman, if I'm not mistaken, at Bernie Grumman's studio. Anyway, this is it's the first of the Genesis titles that I've got from this 25th anniversary series. I previously reviewed Phil Collins' Face Value and the Mingus Blues and Roots, both of which were just frankly stunning. Now, Genesis is they were my first favourite band, and so they have a very sort of warm place in my heart. And actually, the very first LP that I kind of bought with my own money was A Trick of the Tail, which I bought on I think it would have been my 15th birthday. I got some birthday money and bought that. That was on a Saturday, and I seem to remember, I think I bought it Saturday morning from W.H. Smith's in Winchester. Went home, played it, went back down into town on Saturday afternoon and bought Wind and Wuthering and Selling England by the Pound, and played the three albums to death all day Sunday. And then I think after school on the Monday, I'd run out of birthday money, so I think the next album I bought was Foxtrot, which I got second hand from a place, in Winchester. It was in an arcade, a second hand stall in an arcade that's no longer there. So forgive me for not remembering all that. But anyway, Selling England by the Pound. It was the, equal second LP I ever bought. And it's just... that was over 40 years ago, well over 40 years ago. It's been an absolute favourite ever since. And let me just tell you what I've got. So this is actually the copy I've had. I don't have the original copy that I bought. It wasn't an original. It would have been a late 70s repressing on the sort of the blue Charisma sort of in lights type of label. I got this maybe 20 years ago, and this is a Japanese reissue. I'm not sure when from. I think probably the 1980s. If I let you have a look at this. Let's have a look. Yeah, it doesn't say. I'm sure I could find out on Discogs, but it's a Japanese pressing anyway, and it sounds very nice, although slightly different to the UK original. Right, let me just pop that back. Obviously, in the UK, Genesis at that period in time were on Charisma, which was subsequently bought out, I think, by Virgin, and as these things go. I'm not sure who owns them now. Anyway, this I got sometime afterwards, and this is a UK original. One of the things to look for on a UK, there's two Mad Hatter labels. This is what they call the Mad Hatter label. There's a large Hatter and a small Hatter. Now this is the large Hatter, and you can see that the central hole sort of punches a hole through his bow tie, and his hand almost sort of, his finger kind of touches it. The small Hatter, all this sort of finishes a good few millimetres up there above the hole. And that's one way of telling the difference. It's a subtle difference between the two labels, but the large Hatter, which would be the original label for Foxtrot, Genesis Live, Selling England. I don't think Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I have got an original of that. I'd have to go and check. I think that was originally on the small Hatter, the Lamb Lies Down. But anyway, That's what you look for. And in the dead wax, I'm sure somewhere it says Porky's on it. Hang on. So excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, so excuse me if I sound a bit rough. No, anyway, that, to my knowledge, is an original UK. So, this is what I compared it to, basically. So I've got the original UK, a Japanese copy, and then the Analogue Productions. What do we get on the Analogue Productions? Well, for starters, because it's a double 45 RPM, you get 2 LPs, and they make the cover, therefore, a gatefold. And what was on that original inner is now printed out in here, which is really nice. You know, it's it's really, really nice to see that all printed out. And then this photo here, which I have seen before, I think that was used Foxtrot concert program or something. I've seen that before. It's a photo of the era. Anyway, really, really, really beautifully produced cover. Absolutely beautiful. Fully high gloss. It is numbered 1065. My number is, for what it's worth. This is all analog. It's just, it's just beautiful all the way through. And of course you get 2 LPs, which come in these beautiful Analogue Productions QRP inner sleeves. And what we've got is basically we've got 2 tracks per side. So side 1 is Dancing with the Moonlit Night, followed by I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe. Side 2, Firth of Fifth, followed by More For Me. Side 3 is the Battle of Epping Forest with Battle of Epping Forest with After the Ordeal. And then side 4, Cinema Show, segueing into Isle of Plenty. And I'll just run through how it sounds, because it's an epic album, and it's one that I've had for as long as I've been into music. Simple as that. So I'll start off by just giving you a little sort of update on how these two sound. And I will point out that when I first got the new one and I first put it on, my first thought was, just from the beginning of Dancing with the Moon at Night, you've obviously got Gabriel singing, Can You Tell Me Where My Country Lies? And then, a couple of lines later, It Lies With Me, which, is the Queen of Maybe. And all the way through this, Gabriel is putting on voices. He's playing the parts of various characters. And it's right from the word go, it was very kind of clear. You could hear very clearly the different, voices that Gabriel was putting on. And that was really nice. But my initial impression was I was a little underwhelmed. And I have to say that. And I've spoken to a few friends over the last couple of weeks. And I'm just really not so sure about it. But anyway, to those who I have spoken to already, first impressions are very interesting things, but, don't always trust them. And I think what was going on here is it's so much cleaner and it's so much clearer than either of these. And I'll get into the difference between these in a moment. That it was, just different, sort of, kind of, in a way, for something so very well, sometimes seems wrong, and different, of course, isn't wrong, and isn't always wrong. Let me correct that. So anyway, I'm going to just talk about these two first of all. Now, I played the original, and in comparison with the original, the Analogue Productions copy, it's just, the space, the resolution, the clarity, the layering is in another league. But with the original, for instance, when you're the song starts, Dancing with the Moon at Night, and then it sort of, you go through the first verse or so, and then it goes like dance right on through the night, and it all leaps out and becomes sort of power. The song sort of picks up a big, it picks up urgency and energy and power and passion. On the original, that gets a bit glassy, well, quite glassy and glary and confused, but that adds to the urgency, if you like. And then a bit later on, you've got Knights of the Green Shield, Stamp and Shout, and then it's like, and it's, again, the power and the energy of the music, and the electric guitars are full of energy. The bass is deep but not loud, and that's something I want to come back on, because that's really kind of crucial to what's going on here, I think. But basically, as the there's so many layers that they're exquisitely proficient musicians, and they're making very complex music, and it does get a bit messy and a bit sort of overwhelmed, if you like, and on the original. But that kind of, after 40 years listening to it like that, it's that goes sort of hand in hand with the sort of the power and the passion and the energy and the urgency. So that's kind of where let me say it's a little bit dirty, but it's very powerful, and very energetic, and there's a great sense of urgency. Now, a lot of this would be down to using compression and things. There's sort of the more compression you add to something, in a way, the more kind of energy and power you kind of put into it, because it's just sort of, it's turning it all up. It's becoming more dirty and nasty and in your face, so to speak. Now, the Japanese copy is definitely slightly less compressed than the UK. It's slightly clearer, the voice is clearer, I mean, possibly this is the one. Bearing in mind, I've probably had this for about 20, 30 years. I bought this in a second-hand record shop in Worthing when I was a Celestion rep, so that would be back in the 90s, frankly. So, yeah, I've had it for over 20 years, easily. And it's sort of become like my definitive. And it sounds kind of clearer than the original, but I've got them both because it's hard to sort of pick between them. There's a slight sort of brightness to Japanese pressings, which I'm not overly keen on, but you kind of got to have them both in a way. Now, again, back to the Analogue Productions. So let's just go through it track by track and just give you a real rough feeling of what's happening. So, Dancing with the Moon at Night, it starts out very stark vocal. Can you tell me where my country lies, etc., etc. There's tons of sort of echo and ambience and reverb on that voice, and it's just rooted in space. Kind of a timbral accuracy to Peter's voice, as I say, when he's sort of does different voices. You've got Paper Late and young man says you are what you eat well, old man says you are what you wear well, and the Queen of Baby's voice, it lies with me. There's all these different voices, all these different perspectives he's talking from, and they're all very, 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 he's like a ventriloquist. He's sort of, he's putting on all these voices, and it just makes it more delightful. You can hear that on the others, but it's clearer, it's more obvious which voice he's putting on at any one time. And also it's kind of quite interesting because you can hear, now I couldn't tell you the difference between Mike Rutherford, for instance, and Tony Banks's backing vocal. I really don't think I could. But you can very clearly hear Phil's backing vocal, and of course Peter does some backing vocals too, I'm quite sure. Or it's double track, but I think he's doing backing vocals as well. And as for that matter, Phil does on More For Me. But it's just that resolution through the vocal sort of area, which makes it all much more exciting. The piano, I don't know if it's a grand piano or not, but it's, you know, a very piano-y piano, has got more texture and timbre. And as I say, the only thing I would say is that on the very first listen or two, it seemed to be a little bit more sterile and a little bit less sort of urgent than either of the other copies. But again, what you know, from not very far into Dancing with a Moonlit Night, what comes out and stands out is Mike's bass playing, really, the bass. And it's funny, I mean, as a schoolboy getting into Genesis, it was like, you know, the world's best singer, you know, that's what I thought. The world's best drummer, that's what I thought. The world's best guitarist in Hackett. World's best keyboard player. And for some reason, I kind of overlooked Mike Rutherford. I didn't really give him that much credit. But what this does is, I mean, there's a lot of sort of bass pedals in this album where it's just like huge kind of organ type bass power. And as well as that, there's a lot of bass guitar. And all the way through this, the bass pedals, they just, you know, they underpin the music with the power and the weight and the energy that you would expect and hope them to. But also the bass guitar, which, I mean, I've written 4 pages of notes whilst listening to this, but it's, you know, at several points through the record, the bass guitar, you've really kind of, you know, you can hear every note and the kind of the growl of it. And it's really, really, really impressive. But basically, you know, Dancing with the Moonlit Night, it's just, it's really good. It's clearer than any of the other copies. It's got more weight and power. The layering, the keyboards, the guitars, it's just absolutely bloody wonderful. Then we go into I Know What I Like, which is, you know, that was, I think, Genesis's first single of any great. I mean, well, they did singles from, you know, from the first album, The Silent Sun, but none of them were hits. I think I Know What I Like you could vaguely call the hit single. If I'm not mistaken, it had Twilight Alehouse as a B-side, which is a you know, a good fun song. That's you know, it's very much of the sort of the Trespass, Nursery Crime, Foxtrot, Selling England era. I think it might have actually been written a bit before this, but anyway, I digress. I Know What I Like. I mean, it's okay. So at the start, you've kind of got these sort of machine kind of like sound effect type noises, and they're more spacious. It's more expansive. They've got more weight. And then when Peter's voice comes in, it's very, very solid. It's very, very central. Phil's drum weight is just fantastic and sounds amazing. And there's an awful lot of percussion and stuff going on. I mean, basically, the overall sort of tonal balance, if you like, of the song is just really, 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 really good. And then, of course, you know, this is a double 45. So we get to Firth of Fifth, which would be halfway through side 1 on the original, but that's opening side 2 on this. And I mean, Firth of Fifth is another one of, I mean, this album is just full of epic tracks. Excuse that noise in the background. There's some neighbours are doing some DIY, I guess. Anyway, Firth of Fifth, it starts off, the piano is beautiful, guitars are beautiful. The drum sound is superb. Peter's voice is really, really excellent. It's just little things like the sort of cymbals in the background I noticed, which are just like, you know, just really particularly stand out well and sound just delicious. Gabriel's flute sounds lovely, excuse me. And it's that flute bit part comes in, if you know it, It's kind of like, you've got sort of deep bass below that, and obviously drums and the piano particularly. And it's the bass below it that just is so much more massive, so much more textured and solid. The piano is, again, really fantastic. But it all just remains there, exists there without, the tiny subtlest sort of cymbal work, not obscuring it in any way. And then, Hackett comes in with his guitar solo, which is just searing and beautiful. And I've written here on my notes, is, beneath that guitar solo, well, it's not solo because the whole band's going, but, this sort of lead guitar break, if you like. I've written Mike's bass texture beneath just really stands out, and there's a shaker in there, which again, it's almost lost in the original. I think it's probably Peter on the shaker, but again, it's just it's actually on the right channel, quite far off on the right channel. I think it is Peter. Sounds quite detached from the drums and the rest of the percussion, and just sounds superb. And then when the bass pedals come back in again towards the end, and it's absolutely massive, but it doesn't swamp a thing. It's just fantastic. Really, really fantastic. More For Me. Interestingly enough, I didn't used to like this song particularly when I first got it, because it's sung by Phil, and even though the other two albums I had, Trick of the Tail and Wind and Wuthering, were obviously Phil Collins' vocal era albums, I wasn't so keen on More For Me. But it's interesting because you can really hear that sort of clear, frail, slightly hollow sound of Phil's voice on this. But the guitars are sort of silky soft and smooth, but not vague in any way, just really clearly defined. And I think it's, as I say, I was saying earlier about the backing vocals. I'm not sure if it's double tracking or Phil is laying down backing vocals, or both. I think it's probably both. I'm not sure if they had automatic double tracking back then, so maybe they just had to, play back the tape and delay it a bit, and add a delay on it, I suppose you would say. But it's just, it's very, 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 very transparent, very, very beautiful. And there's just tiniest little bits of resolution in there. The sort of finger work on the guitars and that, it just makes it feel so very real. Anyway, let me go to side 3, and yet another epic track in my opinion on this album. As I say, it really is. And when I've run through the tracks, I'll just maybe conclude. But the Battle of Epping Forest, I mean, I love it, and it's there's a road quite near me called Forest Road, and every time I drive along it on the sat nav, it sort of comes up and goes Forest Road, and my brain, along the Forest Road, and I can remember 30-40 years ago driving around the M25 and just sort of seeing signs for Epping, and I'd have the Battle of Epping Forest going through my head. Anyway, I love the album, and it's it's a very tongue-in-cheek and sort of schoolboy humour, because I was a schoolboy when I got into this kind of song about gang warfare. And again, all the voices, all the sort of characters that Peter plays, and some of the rest of the band playing too. But it's just again, it's just it's just better than I've heard it, better than I've heard it before, and along with the line "Along the Forest Road," which is right at the beginning. But there's a guitar or keyboard line in amongst the sort of the plethora of sort of musical threads that are going on. There's a very, very subtle little, I can't tell if it's guitar or keyboard, but I'm sure I haven't heard it before. And again, just sort of like I wrote down, the layering of all the keyboard work is just phenomenal. The bass has got phenomenal weight and groove. And like I said before about Mike, I have to apologise to Mike Rutherford because I'd kind of rather under-respected him, so to speak, before now. But it's really, really, really fabulous. Gabriel's voice has got all the tone and texture and timbre that he's a magician with his voice and what he does with it, and I absolutely love it. And I'd just say the Battle of Epping Forest in general, it's like, take what I know as of my definitive version of it, add more weight and power and foundation and texture to the bass, and that's bass guitar and bass pedals, and of course, bass notes on the organs and the keyboards. And then the sort of expanse of the soundstage at the top with guitars and keyboards and drums and percussion and the like, just much more expansive and clear and open and just beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. Anyway, then we get into After the Ordeal, which is starts quite quietly on sort of pianos and guitars. It's almost like a sort of an epitaph to the Battle of Epping Forest, really. But then sort of halfway, sort of like, there's this sort of dum, 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 dum kind of piano, and then like the drums just, Collins does one of his fantastic little drum rolls, and the bass kicks in and everything, and it's just epic. It really is. More epic than what I've heard before, really, and that's that's what I say about that whole first impressions thing, because that was my first. Not so sure about it, was I wasn't certain it sounded as epic as the original. And it's, I wouldn't say it was on second listen, I'd say it's probably third or fourth listen. But it's each one, it's like, no, I can hear what's going on here, and it's like, and you hear, because the lack of, when you compress something to put it on vinyl, it's it's a two-edged sword. It actually can make things sound more impressive. When you take that away, it can initially make them sound a little bit sort of dilute, if you like, or watery, let's say, see-through, transparent, but not in a see-through, transparent way that is attractive initially, like I say, and it's an important thing to bear that in mind. Anyway, side 4, the cinema show, which segues into the sort of the final Isle of Plenty. But the cinema show, let me just talk about that. It's just got a wonderful ambience around it. The guitars, the sort of, I don't know whether it's a real harpsichord or a harpsichord, effect on an organ or mellotron or whatever, but it sounds lovely. Gabriel's voice is really, really tactile. You can really hear clearly. You can on these, but you can just hear it all more clearly. There's more resolution. There's more separation. There's less failing. There's less confusion. So you hear Phil's backing vocals sort of adding a extra timbral colour to sort of like Juliet's voice, for instance. And you've got that bit where it's like na 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 na, and it's so much more three-dimensional, and you just get drawn really into it, and the different voices, and then the bass kind of cuts back in, or cuts in big time heavy, and then take a little trip back with Father Tiresias, and it's just, Gabriel's voice is just beautiful. It's powerful, but it's kind of mournful and honest and just passionate. And I think that's that's really what it's about. And again, I mentioned Mike's bass really standing out on this, where it maybe sort of disappears into the The bass and all that is very clear on these other versions, but it's kind of low in level. Doesn't have the weight to it, and that's where this has got. It's added a much more weight to the lower registers, and with it more clarity. It's hard to say because with that extra weight, there's no loss of clarity. That's without a shadow of doubt. And I think probably there is just plain more more weight. You've turned up the bass, or rather not turned down the bass. I think that's the thing. When these were cut, they'd have had to turn down the bass just to make the record physically possible, so to speak. Being at 45 RPM, there's a lot fewer compromises have to be made. But yeah, as well as Mike's bass sound, Phil's drum sound is just amazing too. And again, particularly towards the end of the cinema show, the kick drum, the bass drum, it's just bloody awesome. And wherever the choir kind of effect comes in, I think that's probably a mellotron. But that comes in and out all throughout the album. But when that comes in again, it's more expansive, it's more floaty and less glassy, if you like. And it's interesting to note here because when I started, going right back to the beginning of my notes, okay, so I started off playing the original, and I set it by ear to be a nice volume that I was happy with, which using a sound pressure meter, which was 80 decibels for the can you tell me where my country lied? So I set that to about 80, which on my preamp was a volume setting of 58, okay? And on my preamp, like as you go up or down the volumes, it's in 1 dB steps or nearest damn it. So this is quite interesting. So on here, 58, the Japanese one was 59. So the Japanese one is cut about a dB quieter, than the UK one. And interestingly enough, this one was 57. So actually that was cut a dB louder than the original, which is kind of unusual for an audiophile kind of repressing. But that's the fact of the matter. So basically I started this on volume 57, which is the same volume as the other two, and we were listening with my wife Joanna, and we were thoroughly enjoying it. And where did I get to the point where it's just like, oh God, I got to turn this up? And I can't remember where it is. I think I did. Oh yeah, here we are. So this is in the cinema show. So we'd made three and a half sides at that volume that was comparable to the other two, and it was just halfway through cinema show, it's just like there's so much less distortion. Even though we were listening at the same level, it's just like, oh, I want to turn it up. And again, without looking at the preamp, you just turn it up until just by sound purely, oh, that's where we want to be at. But then, of course, I glanced across and just checked. And I turned it up to 68 on my preamp volume, which is 11 dB louder than we were starting off at, which is a lot. And of course, you can't do that with something compressed and distorted and that's just not good. And again, that just shows that in a way, the degree of enjoyment and passion that playing this sort of gave us. It was it was just phenomenal. And of course, I ought to add, this was I bought this album from new, not this particular copy, when I was 15. So I'm 59 now. So 44 years ago, and I've loved it ever since. Joanna, she didn't really know it. She's heard it 2 or 3 times, you know, and anyway, she loved it too. So that's really cool. And then anyway, we get into Isle of Plenty, and it's funny again. I like a bit like More For Me, Isle of Plenty. When I first heard this, you know, all those years ago, you know, it's only a couple of minutes long, if that. So it's no great loss. But I kind of thought, well, what's this? This is a bit weird and a bit mad. And I actually really love it now, and I have loved it for decades, frankly. But it's kind of where you've got that. It's like After the Ordeal being a coda for Battle of Epping Forest, or an epitaph for it, kind of thing, in a way. I think, you know, after all the passion and emotion of you know, the cinema show, what are we going to do? Oh, let's go to the shops, do our shopping. And it just makes me laugh. But I love the way cinema show segues into Isle of Plenty. And honestly, when it did that, I honestly had tears in my eyes. Because it's just, you know, it's wrapping up what is just one of the most beautiful, fantastic, fabulous, magnificent records, you know, artistic musical creations ever. So anyway, I did say I'd go, you know, because I keep talking about the epic tracks. I mean, everyone probably knows I know what I like. But for me, well, there's 4 absolute epics on this, and they are the major part of each side. Dancing with the Moonlit Night, Firth of Fifth, the Battle of Epping Forest, and the cinema show. They are just absolutely staggeringly good. It's an amazingly fantastic and beautiful album. I love the way it's presented here with the cover and everything. I will say though, if you look at the, I mean, you can see how that's faded on the edge there. That's my record shelving, and unfortunately, and you know, 30 odd years of sun bleaching on the spine. But you can see against this one, which of course it isn't an original, but you can see the kind of the colour of Betty Stainwick, I think is the Betty Swanwick painted this. You can see the colour there is pretty authentic on her painting, but the kind of the yellow, creamy yellow, custardy yellow, if you like, is definitely too pale there compared with the Japanese one, which is, you know, not original, of course. But even here, we compare it to the original, UK original, which has surely got to be the reference. Again, you look at there's a little bit more kind of red, I'd say. A little bit more intensity, saturation in the new one. But again, let me slide this out here. If I show you the back cover, you know, you can see it's definitely not quite right. The yellow, it's not quite right, which is a shame, just because everything else is absolutely bloody perfect on this. But that's a tiny thing. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up. I think I've waffled on quite long enough. $60 this cost. I think here in the UK, Vinyl Adventure, who I get quite a lot of my UK purchases from, or UK audiophile purchases, I buy my regular records locally at Raves from the Grave. But Vinyl Adventure, I think he sells these for £75. I did get these direct from Acoustic Sounds, and you know, you've got to pay duty and VAT and the shipping and all the rest of it, but it's hard to work out exactly how much they are because of those extra bills. You know, you get a bill from FedEx at some point. It's not all at the same time, and it costs about $60 postage. So I certainly don't order them one at a time. I'll order them in batches. But, you know, if you call it 60, 70 pounds even in the UK, or, you know, if you're in the US, $60, I guess there might be different sales taxes depending on what state you're in. But it's not a vast amount of money. This is an absolute classic album. I mean, I absolutely love the cover, to be honest. It's, you know, it's you know, it is one of my favourite. I can't tell you which is my favourite Genesis album. It's going to be probably this, Foxtrot. I mean, well, it's been different ones over the years. It'll change from time to time, but it's either Selling England, Foxtrot, The Lamb, Lies Down on Broadway, which I've also got in this series, and I haven't even opened the shrink wrap on it yet. So that may or may not be the next vinyl review I do. I've got a couple of tape reviews which have come up to the top of the waiting list, so that will be the next couple of reviews. But I'll get on to The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. But as I said with Phil Collins, and I don't want to go back about that, Phil Collins Face Value and the Mingus Blues and Roots. So this is the third of these Atlantic 75s. I just want to say that Phil Collins Face Value, I've had earworms of that so many times since playing it, and it's just struck me how utterly inherently good it is. That, well, frankly, it made me go back and have a good second and third and give this another chance, because my first impression was a bit it's also, I think, you know, I'm going to have to get Hello, I Must Be Going, because there's some great tracks on it. I don't like it as much as Face Value, but there's some great tracks on it, and it's just, you know, for £60 odd, for a, you know, I mean, you know, it is a double record. It's, you know, okay, the original would be a single record, but it's what you get for your money. It's so good. I think these are exceptional value for money, and the sound quality is incredible. This is just absolutely unescapably an essential record to have. I cannot recommend it enough. It's phenomenal. But anyway, cheerio. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.